How you doing? Welcome to Building Profit Sales Training. My name is Jamie Sargent. I am the founder of Building Profit Sales Training today, and I just wanted to come on here today with you guys to discuss the inevitable question that comes from in a sales process where you're trying to find out how the decisions are made within a business or within, if you're B2C, business to consumer, how the decision process looks like in that household. Now, it's quite a tough question, and naturally you can quickly, abrasively offend people if you don't ask this question right. And let me tell you right now, when I first started doing this, I also used to offend people quite a bit with these sorts of questions. And what you want to avoid is asking, so are you the decision maker in this business? Because what you're doing is when you ask that question, you are raising that person's, not only their sales resistance, their kind of their thought process around, well, I am the decision maker, even if they're not, because it's an offensive question that requires a defensive answer. And not many people will like to say no in this world, particularly if it lowers their status within the buying position or the buying authority. So what we want to do is we want to avoid asking direct questions like, are you the decision maker? Because what that can do, as I say, is it raises the customer's defensive, and what you'll get is an offensive answer, which may not be very true. What it also could do is turn a potential customer or a business off you. Bearing in mind, if they're not the decision maker and they have to go back and recommend certain companies to work with, if you upset them, then it could very well be that you're straight out the picture before you even know it. So how do we ask this question? What I've found works well is, as you're talking to somebody, you can, before you go into any kind of presentation or anything like that, you can pose it in a way that's more friendly, more less resistance, more sort of help asking, if you like. And the way you position the question is something along the lines of, hey Jim, can you just explain to me what the buying process or the buying process and decisions look like in your business? Now, what you're saying there is Jim is the person you're talking to. You're not sure yet if they are the only person in the buying process, whether they have the decision or not. But what you're asking for is some help. So they may very well say to you, yeah, it's just me you've got to convince, and job's good, and if I decide yes, we can go ahead. What they might say is, actually, there's 3 other board members who are actively involved in the decision making, who might not be present right now on this call, and then you know that there are 3 other people, and then that's where you can perhaps focus on a reschedule, and sort of, rather than you have to relay all this information, Jim, let me help you out, and let's get the other 3 on the call with you, and we can all discuss this together, and I can present and ask questions. Because what I find is, when I've worked with businesses similar to yourself, that by the time you've had to relay all this information, because it's such a big project, that some of the information gets missed, or it creates a bit of a back and forth for everybody. And what I don't want you to do is be having to go back and forth amongst yourselves, and then trying to get hold of me to answer your questions. What would be beneficial is if we could all get on a call together, and we can then discuss together how this would work in your business. Now, that's one way of doing it, clearly. The other way of doing it, particularly if it's business to consumer, and you sort of, you've got Mr. or Mrs. or Mrs. on the phone, or Mr. and Mr. on the phone, you can say a similar sort of thing. In your household, how does the buying decisions get made on something like this? So, for example, if you're selling a training course or you're selling home improvements, how does that look for you guys? And they might say, we'd have to definitely discuss it with my partner. Oh, I see, great. And so when would be the best time then to get yourself and your partner on a call together? Because what I find is 9 times out of 10, your partner will have slightly different questions to you, and it ends up being a little bit disjointed, and you don't get the full information that you need. Whereas if you're together, what also happens is, as you ask questions to me, you'll get questions off each other and bounce ideas off each other about how this project could work for you. And what we want to do here is we want to encourage getting all the decision makers onto one call if we can. Now, there are times when this doesn't happen. Certain businesses, certain decision makers will not get on calls. They just want to see the information. And this is where you then have to really do some homework about what that decision maker would actually want to see. And that is your next question. I appreciate, Jim, that Dave can't be on this call. Can you tell me what it is that Dave is looking for in the solution, so that I can make sure I can cover off that particular aspect for Dave? And obviously this call is recorded, so we can pass that recording on to Dave. But I just want to make sure that Dave gets all the information firsthand that he would need to help him in his buying decision with yourself, Jim, on this inquiry. And all we're doing here again is trying to be the assistant. We're trying to say, listen, we appreciate Dave can't be on the call because Dave is too busy. But actually, if Dave is the one who's making the decision, then we really need to know what Dave wants to know about the project or how it's going to look. And it's very, very important that you are very neutral in your approach on these questions. You do not want to be abrasive, because we're in a climate now and an era now where there are so many options at the power of fingertips from a mobile phone that if a customer doesn't like you, they're on to the next supplier within minutes. So you want to be very neutral, but also, you want to make sure that you are getting the correct information out first time, not third time, fourth time, fifth time. The calls become disjointed, it becomes more difficult to manage, and it's broken down information, which when we're honest, it's very difficult for Dave then to manage the decision, because he's getting broken parts of information. And 9 times out of 10, most companies these days will see at least 2 to 3 suppliers of a particular product before they commit. So it's very, very important we find out what questions that they have, and then how we can answer them before moving forwards. And this applies to anything, whether you sell cars, whether you sell stationery, whether you sell medical devices, SaaS products or services. You need to know really what the key buying motivations are behind a customer looking at this project, or if you're cold calling, what would make them want to switch. So you've got to be asking these subtle questions in a nice, neutral way that will encourage the information out to them without them feeling like you are pushing them too hard for information. So I hope that's really helpful, guys. I hope that you can implement that and use these questions to move yourself forward, particularly if you're in cold calling or in presentations. But equally, B2C, if you're in business to consumer, it is also a great technique to find out if the other person who's not on the call is involved in the decisions or not. I hope that's helpful, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. We'll be loading up content weekly here, so drop on, and great to see you and speak to you soon. Take care, guys. Have a good one.